The future of art, generative AI assisting humans or humans assisting generative AI? Art is a form of human expression that reflects our creativity, emotions, and values. It can be seen as a way of communicating our inner world to the outer world, or a way of exploring and discovering new aspects of ourselves and our reality. Art can take various forms, such as painting, music, literature, or programming, and each form has its own techniques, conventions, and challenges. Generative AI is a branch of artificial intelligence that can create new content, such as images, music, text, or code, based on some input or data. It can be seen as a way of applying computational power and algorithms to generate novel and diverse output, or a way of learning and mimicking the patterns and structures of existing data. Generative AI can use different methods, such as neural networks, evolutionary algorithms, or generative adversarial networks, and each method has its own strengths, limitations, and applications. The relationship between generative AI and human art is complex and fascinating, as both can influence and inspire each other in different ways. There are many possible scenarios of how generative AI and human art can interact and collaborate, but here we will focus on two main ones: generative AI assisting humans to make art, and humans assisting generative AI to make art. One possible scenario is generative AI assisting humans to make art. This can happen when humans use generative AI as a tool or a partner to enhance their artistic process. For example, a human painter can use generative AI to generate different color palettes, textures, or shapes for their painting. A human musician can use generative AI to compose new melodies, harmonies, or rhythms for their song. A human writer can use generative AI to generate new ideas, characters, or plots for their story. In these cases, generative AI can help humans to overcome creative blocks, explore new possibilities, or discover new styles. This scenario can have many benefits for both generative AI and human art. For generative AI, it can provide a useful and meaningful function for humans, as well as a source of feedback and improvement. For human art, it can provide a valuable and innovative resource for artists, as well as a source of inspiration and diversity. This scenario can also raise some interesting questions for both generative AI and human art. For generative AI, it can challenge the notions of autonomy and agency in the creative process. For human art, it can challenge the notions of originality and authenticity in the artistic output. Another possible scenario is humans assisting generative AI to make art. This can happen when humans use their knowledge, skills, or feedback to guide or improve the output of generative AI. For example, a human curator can select the best images generated by generative AI based on their aesthetic criteria. A human editor can refine the lyrics or the structure of a song generated by generative AI based on their musical taste. A human reviewer can critique or revise the text or the code generated by generative AI based on their linguistic or logical standards. In these cases, humans can help generative AI to achieve higher quality, coherence, or originality. This scenario can also have many benefits for both generative AI and human art. For generative AI, it can provide a way of learning from humans and improving its performance and accuracy. For human art, it can provide a way of engaging with new forms of art and expanding its scope and reach. This scenario can also raise some intriguing questions for both generative AI and human art. For generative AI, it can challenge the notions of creativity and intelligence in the generation process. For human art, it can challenge the notions of value and meaning in the artistic output. Which scenario is more interesting? That depends on one's perspective and preference. Some might argue that generative AI assisting humans to make art is more interesting because it preserves the human agency and creativity in the artistic process. Humans can still control the final outcome and express their own vision and voice through their art. Generative AI can be seen as a helpful assistant that can augment the human potential and enrich the human experience. Others might argue that humans assisting generative AI to make art is more interesting because it challenges the human assumptions and expectations about art. Humans can learn from the novel and diverse output of generative AI and appreciate the different forms and meanings of art. Generative AI can be seen as an independent agent that can generate its own vision and voice through its art. Ultimately, both scenarios are interesting and valuable in their own ways. Generative AI and human art can coexist and collaborate in a symbiotic relationship that benefits both parties. Generative AI and human art can also compete and contrast in a dynamic relationship that stimulates both parties. The future of art is not only about generative AI or human art, but about the interaction and integration of both.